Hey everyone, my name is Jake Stern and I'm Senior Vice President for Business Development at Cinnaire. If you're not familiar with Cinnaire, Cinnaire is a community development financial institution referred to as a CDFI that funds, develops, and advocates for affordable housing in general, but also specifically in the upper Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic states, which is where we have our offices. Like many nonprofits, we have a mission statement that guides what we do, and that is that we have an unwavering belief that all people deserve the opportunities provided by living in healthy communities. Cinnaire got its start in 1992. Since then, we've raised over $4.5 billion and invested that on behalf of our investors into affordable housing. Cinnaire's headquarters are in Lansing, Michigan. And like I said, we've got many satellite offices throughout the upper Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic. I myself work out of our Wilmington, Delaware offices. That's also where I live. And from there, I cover business development activity for the Mid-Atlantic region, which includes Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. So what I'd like to cover today, and I will circle back to what business development activity means, by the way, I promise. But I want to first talk about the concept of investing in affordable housing, how it gets accomplished. As you can imagine, it's not so simple. And then I'll specifically talk about Cinnaire's role in that, my role at Cinnaire, and a little background on me. And I hope that you find this beneficial just to get a glimpse into an industry that frankly was unbeknownst to me when I was in your shoes. But that is robust, that is challenging, complex, and also fulfilling. And I hope it gets you curious. So maybe this conversation makes you think about some of the projects going on in your community, town, or city. It makes you want to dig into it a little bit more. And hopefully it makes you want to reach out to professionals you know that are doing things that interest you. The best way to expose yourself to different stuff is to talk to people that are doing it, learn about it that way. And that's naturally going to lead into figuring out what career opportunities there are and the things that interest you. So I hope it sparks that curiosity and motivation to do that. So investing in affordable housing, it is critical. I could cite lots of data and research, but I think there's a fundamental truth that we all just generally understand, which is having a safe and comfortable place to call home is really the foundation for being able to address challenges and obstacles in life. Without it, those obstacles can be much harder to scale. It's a major need in the world, but also the US. And the rule of thumb in the industry is that, families should not be spending more than 30% of their income on housing, rent and utilities, but also a mortgage if you're not a renter. In fact, if you're a mortgage lender, you're going to want to make sure that the borrower who you're giving a loan to has income sufficient that they're not spending more than 30% of their income to repay your loan. And you'd view that as risky, in fact, if they needed to spend more of it. Because you need 70% for the other stuff, transportation, food, recreation. So generally we want to make sure that tenants in affordable housing are not paying more than 30% of their income to live there. So it's critical, it's sorely needed. So why don't we build more? It's not like market or luxury housing where demand for housing sort of creates supply that follows. Think about it with affordable, you're intentionally limiting the rents that you can charge tenants because your goal is not just profit maximization, it's to house the people that would be vulnerable to otherwise be living in substandard housing, cost burdensome housing, or possibly no housing at all. And so you need some government assistance to kind of make up for the gap that results from charging lower rents and having less cash flow to finance the project without some sort of public intervention in it. And so what the federal government did is they created a program called the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit. And a tax credit, by the way, is something that for its owner, if you have $1 tax credit and you owe $2 in taxes, then you then owe only $1 in taxes. So there's a one-to-one kind of write-up of your taxes. And another key piece of information about tax credits is that they can be sold. So if you have a tax credit, but you don't have taxes yourself, or you have a better use for it, you can sell it, or if someone has a better use for it, you can sell it to them in exchange for cash. And perhaps that cash is more critical to you, which it is for affordable housing developers. So the federal government gives states these tax credits to then allocate to developers who are proposing to build projects that meet the needs of affordable housing in that state. And once developers receive these tax credits, then the rubber meets the road and they've got to pull all the main pieces together, including their financing. And this is where Cinnaire steps in. And I'm going to share my screen so I can do some slides. It's a little bit easier to follow that way, I think. All right. So we're gonna talk about tax credit syndication. Cinnaire is referred to as a tax credit syndicator, which is a term that was clear as mud to me for many, many years. And we're going to talk about it in less than 3.5 minutes. Let's try for that. So Cinnaire raises capital from investors, mainly banks, but also insurance companies. And we pool the capital we raise from banks into a fund. And then we invest that money into many affordable housing projects throughout our footprint that need the cash to kind of fill out their capital stack for their projects. Okay, so this is not about profit maximization. Why invest in these tax credits? Well, for the investor, oftentimes you're paying less than the value of the credits themselves. So you may pay 90 cents for $1 in credits. Well, just at a quick glance, that seems like a decent deal. Oh, and my dog is here. We're in COVID. We're working with it. Sorry about that. What else? By investing in tax credits, you then become owner of the real estate, which provides you additional tax benefits, which I won't get into, but just understand that by way of now being an owner through your investment, you are getting more than the value of just the tax credit. So you're getting the 90 cents for $1 plus other benefits. Third, investing in affordable housing provides regulatory compliance from the federal government that is imposed on investors like banks. And essentially, banks are required to make investments that are needed in the communities in which they have physical branches and take deposits. And for them, investing in affordable housing is one of the most popular ways to kind of satisfy these compliance requirements. And then last, these are pretty safe investments. So they have a really good history of performance, not a lot of defaults. They're pretty reliable and predictable. So the upside may not be as high from an investor's perspective, but at least it's predictable, and that is worth a lot as an investor. Yeah, so we provide these projects cash so they can be constructed, and then in exchange, we get tax credits and other stuff, which Cinnaire syndicates and passes on to its investors, which are typically lots of banks. Okay, so business development. What is my role at Cinnaire? What is that function in general? Number one is we have to find the deals. So we can't do what we do unless we have opportunities to bid on deals and work with developers. So you need to kind of be in your market, in the community, and anticipating projects that are coming online. You need to also have some analysis skills, so financial analysis, understanding real estate finance, market analysis, because we're kind of the first glance at a project to make sure it kind of fits our needs, our investors' needs, and that we feel it's a viable project to invest in. You also need to be a good negotiator. So sometimes negotiations can be tough, they can be uncomfortable, but it's critically important to be able to navigate a negotiation to get to a result that works for you, your investor, and also the developer, of course. Also in my role is we need to build relationships and build trust. We want people to count on us to sort of follow through on our commitments, but also be there when things get challenging, to be a good partner to work through those. Because with these deals, complexities and challenges always come up, and you need to be responsive and thoughtful in how you deal with that. And lastly, this is business development. So I'm trying to find new partners to work with throughout the Mid-Atlantic region, and constantly building that pipeline. So there's a sales element to this role as well. All right. So just a little more background on me. Before coming to Cinnaire a year and a half ago, I was actually in Chicago and worked for a not-for-profit for 8 years that did small business lending. They also administered city grant programs that funded neighborhood scale commercial development projects. So it was really focused on small businesses and, helping finance projects and businesses that, were struggling to find financing from banks. So a similarity between my old job, where my last role was Director of Economic Development, and my new job is that different subject matters, but in both cases, bringing public programs, incentives or tools sponsored by governments. So my old job, that was mainly coming from the city of Chicago. My new job, that's mainly coming from the federal government and state governments. But in both cases, governments are sponsoring these programs, and they're partnering with not-for-profit organizations, but also for-profit organizations to kind of bring those tools to bear to get the results that, are our common goals. So there's lots of overlap in skills needed in terms of analytical skills, relationship management skills, communication skills that are essential in both. My academic background, I got a master's in urban planning, and followed that up with a master's in business administration with a concentration in finance. I don't know that I would recommend to anyone to plan on doing 2 master's programs. I don't regret either, but it's a lot of school, a lot of student loans, but I really got a lot out of both of those experiences. So if you are interested in community development finance or affordable housing, I think both of those academic programs would be worth your consideration. So I'm going to wrap up here. I think I'm going on a little bit long, but I just hope that my discussion with you today just sort of cracks open into view this world of affordable housing, and shows you that it's a rich one, it's a complex one, and most importantly that there's a lot of different career paths within it. I gave you a small glimpse into what my role is within it, but there are so many disciplines, and there are so many different functions at Cinnaire, just one small example, that have to be fulfilled. And so there are lots of career opportunities. Being in finance doesn't mean you're working on Wall Street. You can be in finance and be working for a nonprofit, and funding things that aren't about profit maximization kind of goes against what some may assume finance is. So lastly, I want to reiterate a point I made to start, which is I hope this sparks some curiosity and encourages you to do some independent research and reach out to professionals that are doing things that you think might be interesting to you. The best way to kind of explore things is to get to know people that are doing them, and go from there. So don't be shy, ask questions, reach out. Feel free to reach out to me if you feel so compelled. I'm happy to have conversations with anyone who's interested in learning more. So with that, I wish you all the best and good luck.